Avant Gardening Part 3. Now, I am thinking that today's program we should call the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we don't even need to wear cowboy hats. I know you have things in your garden that you think of as bad, and I surely do. And one of them is right here in this bag, and it is Japanese beetles. And they love to be in your hollyhock, get in there. They like to be in your roses. They like to be in your linden trees. They like to be in your willows. And in the early morning and in the evening, they will fall, for whatever reasons, willingly into a bag. Now, if you try and catch them during the day, there's a lot of flying at you, there's a lot of screaming and taking on. Not a good time to do it. And why not go out and admire, oh, there's one left in here. Why not go out and admire your beautiful plants? After all, you've gone to a lot of work to make your garden look good, and you're doing something to help get rid of your enemy. Then you put it on the ground, you stand on it. And if you want to be really environmentally correct, you empty the bag and the raccoons will clean it up for you during the night. Now, a lot of people like to spray their beetles, but remember, that's a hard, crusty shell, so it takes them forever with a lot of spray to die. Don't forget also that your good friends, the honeybees and the bumblebees and the butterflies, go to those very same flowers that the Japanese beetles like, and when they step in that insecticide, they will die also. So spraying is not such a good idea. One interesting product is a Japanese beetle trap that you can buy at your nursery. Now, this is a product that's been around for a long time, and it certainly works. In it, it has a pheromone that smells really strong of roses. You put it up here, the beetles smell it, they come in, they hit the vein, they fall down in the bag. Great way to catch them. However, research in recent years has indicated that they actually are drawing not only your beetles, your neighbor's beetles, and if it's a windy day, beetles from really far away. So maybe this isn't such a good idea. Now, to show you what this looks like in your yard, in case you are the one person left on earth who thinks you do not have Japanese beetles, here is what my linden tree looks like. They start at the top, all the leaves become veins. I think of it as a good way to get a leg up on the fall leaf cleanup because leaves like this are laying all over my yard. Let me show you the organic way to get rid of your Japanese beetles and to get rid of your grubs that are eating your grass. This stuff is called milky spore. It comes as a granule, it comes as a powdered product. You can put it on with a grass spreader, but hey, I don't have a grass spreader. So I'm going to go around with a little cup and go dink, dink, dink on the grass and do it that way. And that works just as well. Now, let me tell you what milky spore is. It is like biological warfare. You put this stuff on the ground, it washes down in, it's in the dirt, the grubs eat it. Oh, it multiplies in their little white squirmy bodies and explodes. Does that give you a good feeling? And it keeps spreading out underneath your grass in your yard. And in fact, is known to be effective for 10 to 20 years. Now, initially you have to put it on a couple of years, but then you've got it and you'll find you have lots fewer Japanese beetles. And I personally do use this product. Let's pour it in the bag. Okay, here's a patch of my grass that doesn't look too hot. Now, when you pull in your grass and it pulls out like this, you know you have Japanese beetle grubs in your grass. So you take your milky spore, you want to use your kitchen tablespoon or a little measuring thing like this, and you are going to put a dollop of it every 12 inches, a tablespoon of milky spore. Then you hope for rain. Okay, so far we've looked at bad and they definitely are ugly. So now I'd like to look at a plant that everybody really despises, and that's poison ivy. And it's something you want to learn to know how to identify and protect yourself from it. Let's go see the poison ivy. Now here we have a specimen of one of the things that I consider to be a bad guy in your yard. My neighbors often will come to me and say, we've got poison ivy, we don't know where it is in the yard, will you please check our yard? And of course I do. But it's even better if you yourself know how to identify it, because there are several plants that look very much like it. Now this is a pretty big specimen, and so what I'm going to do is loosen the soil around it just a little bit. And then, don't you love recycling? All those useless newspaper bags? The perfect way to do this you pull it out, you're going to fold it up. You are going to slip this back the other direction. You have never touched it. You will knot it, put it in your garbage can. Garbage man is safe too. But isn't that a great way to take that out? Now remember, when you are pulling poison ivy, if you have big poison ivy, you can do the very same thing with a dry cleaning bag, put it up your arm. If you have lots of really big poison ivy, you're going to want to get clothes at the thrift shop that you throw out when you are done trying to pull out your poison ivy. And you may end up eventually spraying it because it always sends back new sprouts. Also remember that the dog can give you poison ivy. If the dog runs through the poison ivy, sits on your lap, oops, you'll wonder where you got the poison ivy. If you happen to be biking on the old plank trail, I suggest you don't fall off your bike, because there's certainly lots of it along there that you could get into. Now, let's look at some lookalikes. Now, I'm going to show you some lookalikes that you may see in your yard. This is box elderleaf, and when it first comes up as a sprout from seed, it looks very much like the poison ivy. Another plant that I think always looks a lot like it is Virginia creeper. And you all know the leaves of 3, let it be. This is, by the way, shade gardeners and native plant gardeners, a lovely plant, Virginia creeper, but it will have 3 leaves. Now they aren't red, but they certainly come up and start as 3 leaves. But those are the 2 that are most often confused with poison ivy. I know many of you have a deer problem. I am grateful to say that I personally do not. But for you who do have a deer problem, I suggest that you go to the internet, and there you will find lists of plants that deer are not supposed to like. However, I have to warn you that often the plants on that list, deer like them when they are young and will continue out of habit to eat them when they are old. Your best prevention is a very expensive deer high fence that a deer cannot jump over. Now let's talk about the good stuff in the garden, and toads are one of your best friends. Let's start over. Okay, we talked about enough bad stuff in the garden. Now it's time to talk about some good stuff, and I'd like to talk about toads. For any of you who have water gardens, you know that in the spring the toads go in there, they lay their eggs, you'll hear all that wonderful trilling in the spring. Then we have tadpoles, then they come out and they are toads in your yard. They are out here catching all kinds of stuff that you don't see probably yourself, like grubs and slugs that are eating your hosta. You have a lot of holes in your hosta, you better hope you've got a lot of toads. And we've got some little cuties to show you today that we're going to release. Now, if a toad piddles on you, do not be alarmed. This will not harm you. Above all, you will not get warts, but it reminds the dog, if he bites the toad once, that he doesn't want to bite the toad again. Bye. Now, I always like to show you a few plants that will help you in your garden, something new and different you may not have seen. And these are the dog days of summer. We're going into fall. I don't know what's blooming in your garden, but I sure don't have much blooming in my garden. But this is a plant, and you shade gardeners, you'll love this one, green dragon. This thing is the most interesting plant. It comes up early in the spring. So this has been here all summer looking this perky, this good. It looks like a mayapple leaf. It's got the split in the leaf and then the vortex around it. So it's a very interesting leaf. I think that probably you can even use this in flower arrangements and it would last and do well. But the really interesting thing, not showy, but this is the flower. And it is what's called a spathe. And then this thing, we have no idea what that's for. Some little pollinator goes way down in here and creates seeds. And you see how you get a nice little clump of these, and they look really great, and for shade. Now, I have not experimented with this to see if this will do well in the sun, but I think that it also could be a sun plant or a margin plant for you, but something different. So this is a plant, you can think about it, get some new ideas of stuff to put into your yard when spring comes and you start getting those catalogs. Oh, and let's take a little closer look at the seed pods. Here you see a lot of seeds, and look at how it fills up the spathe. And you can just take all of those little seed pods, and you know, I really love this plant, so hey, let's just spread some new ones of those. Woohoo! I often am asked about bats, and people will call and they'll say, oh, they've got bats behind their shutters and this is a worry. Let me just say this, 3,000 insects a night. Now, is that not an astonishing number? Every night, a bat, an individual bat, eats 3,000 insects a night. Now, just to give you a little bat background, our bats winter over in caves near LaSalle, then they come back and they come to a nursery tree like the swell big shagbark hickory behind me. They have their babies on the tree, and I think that they sometimes leave the babies hanging there while mom goes out to feed and get her 3,000 insects a night. And it's, you know, they are good. They are ugly, but they are definitely your good friend. And so when everybody's talking about West Nile, you've got all these mosquitoes, hey, remember, bats are your friend. If you go to Bat Conservation International, you will see very interesting plans for making bat houses. Now, in Europe, they have lots of success with bat houses. Here in Illinois, sometimes yes, sometimes no. If the bats come back from the caves in LaSalle and I have had to take down my big hickory tree or it's fallen over in a storm, well, then they have to find someplace else to go. That's when you're most likely to get bats in your bat house. Right above me, you will see a European bat house made out of concrete. It's concrete and sawdust or something like that. You'll notice how tiny the little place to get into it is, and that is just about the size that a bat needs to go in there and use it for shelter. But bats, good. 3,000 insects a night. Now, all of the stuff we've talked about, you probably want more information about it. So plan to go to the internet, look up mason bees, our very own North American solitary bee, find out how you can help them. Go to Monarch Watch. This is a wonderful website. They have tons of lists of plants that you can use to attract monarchs. And you know, monarchs are very specific about the plants that they like. Plan to go to Bat Conservation International. Now, I know you didn't think you'd get a Christmas helpful hint today, but for the person on your list who has everything, if you buy them a membership in Bat Conservation International, trust me, 4 times a year when they get their publication, they will definitely remember that you gave it to them. Another group is the Xerces Society, spelled with an X. Now, I am Kay McNeil, your Avant gardener. I am only an email away. Do you like the show? Do you need help? I'd be glad to help you. fctv.gardening@gmail.com. See you next time.